Hi, I'm Anurag Kashyap and you're watching me on Bollywood Hungama.
Well, Anurag Kashyap is someone who constantly just flirts with all sorts of reactions. Actually, you can love him, you can at times hate him as well. You can at times find him that he's not really coming forth because he himself says that I'm fundamentally reluctant. So he's a lot of people in one person. But the fact is that you can't just take out the fact that he's an extremely honest man, and that shows in his film Mukkabaaz. Which many are saying that it is an entertaining film that he's made after a while. So which is, I think, something that panders to many more people, which I think ultimately movies should be doing as well. We have with us Anurag Kashyap back on BollywoodHungama. Pleasure having you back, Anurag.
Thank you for having me.
And Mukkabaaz, as we discussed last time around as well, personally, as a movie watcher, it's very important for me to have a good time in the cinema hall. So the entertainment factor is somehow that I personally look forward to a lot, because you can say a lot of things in terms of undercurrents, but ultimately you should come out. There should be some feeling, goose pimples होना चाहिए, कुछ होना चाहिए आपको, which definitely happened when I watched Mukkabaaz, and even people around me, when I just noticed them, they were really moved that this is something, and the end, I think the climax is something which moves them in a very different manner. It's an unorthodox climate. How happy are you as a filmmaker with Mukkabaaz?
I'm extremely happy in the sense I think I managed to do what I wanted to do with the film, and it is reaching out, because it took me a long time to realize, I have always had this thing that I don't tend to explain a lot in my movies.
Right.
And I used to do that. I said, when I'm not spending so much money on the film and I'm not looking to recover that much, I don't need to explain much more. And there's this whole thing of wanting the film to be more intelligent and to not underestimate the audience. But also sometimes when you're dealing with certain issues in life, you feel like, I need to step out of myself. And whatever myself that I have created around me, the bubble that I have around me. And it's so important to reach out to people. The intelligent thing to do is to reach out to people. And fine, if everybody is, you can't go on saying that, unko nahi samajh mein aaya to main kya karu. You have to reach out to them and find a solution. You don't have to dumb yourself down, but you can still reach out to people. You can reach out to them emotionally, intellectually, without undermining them. And there was a conscious effort in this film.
Right. Now, you've had many films, and your films, they tend to entertain at a certain level. Actually, there is a certain way that you tend to, because ये आपके बारे में काफी बार कहा जाता है. That is why I'm just mentioning that as well. And there have been movies that you have literally catered to the masses, and people have reacted to your dialogues. Be it, I think, Gangs of Wasseypur has been one film. In fact, I must tell you one incident that we were having this session at Jashn-e-Rekhta last year with, and Tigmanshu Dhulia was there, part of it, apart from Javed Saab and Imtiaz. So when Tigmanshu came on the stage, everyone, आगे जो crowd थी, they started that, तुमसे ना हो पाएगा, तुमसे ना, that tells that the popularity of the dialogues and how far they have reached. Why is it that you tend to do it, like, say, once in a while? You feel the film dictates what your dialogues should be and what
it shouldn't be. I'm saying it's the subject matter. It's always the subject matter. I'm saying Gangs of Wasseypur, the subject matter was such, and the reason to make the film was such that there was this whole tongue-in-cheek approach. We were started out with making a film about these gangsters who are so influenced by mainstream heroes. Right? And for me, I've always dealt with the fact when I make very realistic films, I used to be questioned by censor board. That why, you make these films, it will have a bad impact on people. I've not met people who have had bad impact on because of me. If you meet most of the criminals and gangsters, they're mostly in their heads, they're mainstream heroes. They're mostly inspired by mainstream movie.
Must be.
And then they're not like, they feel in their personal lives they're this anti-hero and they're this and that. And that's what was interesting for me, because the murders in Wasseypur and everything was planned around the release of a film or some other hero's fan. People were fans of different mainstream actors. So all those things made me want to do that film.
Absolutely. Beat Pankaj Tripathi, Nawaz, I think everything. People actually discuss scenes from that film that when
You don't plan those things out. You just go and do the film, and you don't know what will happen.
Absolutely. When it comes to Mukkabaaz, I strongly feel that there are so many moments that people, I think, in theaters, they'll really have a good time, and they'll cheer with Vineet, because
there's
it's
some
a
kind
story
of
of an
emotional
underdog.
connect people have with Mukkabaaz. But in the sense that also not, I didn't know that that was happening while we were shooting it. That happened after the film started screening with people, because I realized a lot of people connected with the film because they all feel in different capacities, like Vineet's character, in different stages of life, be it a guy in a corporate who has his dream wanting to do, and he's always dealing with somebody who's blocking
the
them
boss,
out.
the boss in the
Yes, that Bombay Bullet song.
that moment that when he finally that moment when he finally confronts him, I think it will get like a I think roaring response. Even his interaction with Jimmy Shagir when the outburst takes place, I think that is something that has that big screen moment to it. That
also because there's so much right now we are dealing with in this country. There's so much. There's so many. One thing that we need to do I feel with our people is actually figure out, somebody decides that, you know what, our people need to get a perspective, need education, but instead of that, we are like literally using that against them. And we're living in times when people have forgotten the difference between the true and false. And lies are being peddled as truth, and truth is being discarded, and these are tough times we're living in.
No, absolutely.
And in a time like that, you need to address things around you. I don't know what is right and what is wrong. I'm a filmmaker. Like yesterday on Twitter, there were these two different threads about the EVM machines and tampering. The thing is, I read one thing, I believe it. I read the other thing, I also believe that. But I'm not a technical person. How do I know the difference between the two?
Correct.
Right? And then my desperate need is to get into the research of it. I start calling people, talking to people. Everybody has counterpoint of views, and you don't know who has genuine counterpoint of views, who has a political affiliation. You don't know. I've always felt like I'm a person who is kind of apolitical. I don't side with the party. I feel like at any given moment who's best for the governance, and we'll go there. There's no lifetime loyalty for things. Right.
But even if you have a liking or an affinity, what's wrong in it?
No, there's nothing wrong in it. But I'm
why,
saying right now
why are we being made to feel criminal that
right
we are not supporting
that has always been there. But right now it's little oppressive. Right now it's too much. There's so much fear in the atmosphere. Right now. But that somebody or the other always takes offense. So वो constant politics तो चलते रहता. Social network has made it worse.
Absolutely.
It has made it worse. This whole atmosphere has become so fair in the sense, if I say something that I feel wrong about, the people I'm standing up for want to shut me down.
Must be because especially I think the film industry has become such a
our film industry is constantly living in fear. Our film industry
and they're paying for it
and targeted.
They are paying for it as well.
Yeah, they need to know the power.
You guys stood up for Udta Punjab. You guys stood up for Udta Punjab. You had a very honorable release. The fact is that Padmavati guys, they were playing on the back foot since the beginning itself. They never lodged a police complaint when
I think sometimes also what comes into play is how much you have to lose.
But now they're losing much
for a big budget
more.
film, no, everybody gets scared. See. If I have put in my own money into a movie, it's up to me to stand up for it or not. So there's a lot of studio investment in a movie. So what happens? The filmmaker cares about the film. I care about the right of the artist. The studio cares about his money that is invested. And the man in the decision-making power cares about his job.
Right.
Nobody really cares about things that they should be caring about, and there's a lot of fear, and that fear and that weakness makes them vulnerable, and people prey on it.
No, that is there, but if you look at it,
I can fight for it because I fight for it, and I've always fought for it. Because I fight for it, people feel they can come and stand with me and speak up for me.
Right.
So if I don't fight for it, it's like you can't fight for someone who can't fight for themselves.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, you can't judge somebody who cannot fight for themselves.
You can't judge somebody who can't fight for themselves, but as an outsider, like say if I'm looking at it, it's if you look at it in simple terms, the fact is that it was not easy for Udta Punjab as well. If you guys would not have raised the voice, you guys would not have had like a honorable release. And the fact is that you did. and the movie did well. The fact is that in Padmavati, they were on the back foot since the beginning. No matter, now I think you have much bigger to do because now that they are dictating that who will decide what you pose in your film.
It's also because there's a lack of clear stand from the government. See, because the government is also figuring out which way the wind blows. So I'm saying all the problems that we have faced in the last 2-3 years has one very simple solution. A man responsible for people of the country, and people means all people, including people who probably have not voted for you.
Correct.
Stands up and says, this can't be allowed. You can't be doing this. And that man is our Prime Minister. If a Prime Minister chooses to not speak on the subject, and everybody else is also not speaking on the subject, then the people who are creating problems will have a field day. And that's where my trouble is. He says, is the country only about people who are very obviously, vocally on your side? Or is it about everybody else too? Is it an inclusive place or not?
Yeah, it is surprising that, in fact, you tweeted to Mr. Modi as well, and then it was all hell broke loose that how can you address him, how can you tag him. The fact is there are cheerleaders within the film industry who are doing it all the time. They are supporting and backing and just putting forth all the point of view. So no one is finding any fault in that.
Right now it's a one-way street. Right now it's a one-way street.
Right. Okay, you said one more very interesting thing that you were curious about this entire EVM thing. What someone can just in today's time, you can just get up and say that why as a filmmaker you have to be curious about EVM. You अपना picture बनाइए, आप entertainment अपना song and dance करिए.
Whenever I have asked a serious
spotlight
question,
क्या होता है? They don't know what sort of films that are possible in the.
Whenever I have asked a question, I have always been told by people and places, why don't you mind your own business?
Right.
And forget outside, even the film industry. Whenever I have taken a stand, the industry has told me, why don't you mind your own business?
Right.
My thing is this not my business? I'm saying, you think it doesn't affect me. You think, okay, if I mind my own business, if I just stay a filmmaker, you think what is happening out there will not affect me as a filmmaker? Or it is my business. Everything is my business. Everything is my business when you pay the taxes. When you go out and speak on platforms.
Right.
When you make movies, everything is my business. When I'm dealing with censorship, when I'm dealing with, on a daily basis of life, when I step into a Uber or a rickshaw and I pay by the meter, everything is somewhere directly connected. When I go out and buy vegetables, it's directly connected.
Absolutely.
To everything.
Absolutely.
And every citizen is directly connected to politics.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So everything is somebody's business. But the thing is, there is conscious, by profession trolls or people whose job is to create an atmosphere of fear and shut you down.
Right.
And I feel like that is being given such a, like उसको हवा दिया जा रहा है
बहुत ज़्यादा,
और उसकी वजह से हो रहा है और कोई सपोर्ट सिस्टम है नहीं. इट डजंट मैटर. मतलब एक आदमी को आप फेसबुक पे गंगा पे कमेंट करने के लिए जेल में डाल देते हो और बाकी लोग आपको ऐसी ऐसी बातें कह जाते हैं. हाँ, उनको कोई कुछ करता नहीं है. लोग व्हाट्सएप वीडियो डाल देते हैं किसी को मार काट के जलाने का, उसको डिफेंड करने के लिए सब खड़े जाते हैं, कोई कहता नहीं है.
Absolutely.
पुलिस आती नहीं है.
Which is appalling.
Which is absolutely appalling.
Absolutely. There's no sense of law and order, and there's a very biased sense of law and order which is prevailing. As far as Mukkabaaz is concerned, you have a lot of undercurrents. You've spoken about the entire caste system. You've spoken about it.
I am, because it's like these are things that directly affect us. If you look at UP, has gone through this whole thing of, there was this upper caste oppression, then there was this lower caste that got empowered, then there's so much infiltration in the government, then there's resentment with the lower caste kaise upar aa rahi hai.
Correct.
Then again the upper caste has come back. It's a cycle of things. My film addresses both. It talks about casteism, it talks about reverse casteism.
Right. Reverse is my favorite word these days. Revert, counter, thread.
हाँ नहीं, but वो हर चीज़ को वो करना बहुत ज़रूरी है. आपको सबवर्ट करना चाहिए, बहुत ज़रूरी है. आपको देखना ज़रूरी है कि इतना ऑपरेशन में से आपके अंदर रिजेंटमेंट आता है.
राइट.
तो जो इतने साल ऑपरेस्ड रहा है,
राइट,
वो आपको रिजेंट कर रहा है.
राइट.
आज भी बहुत सारे लोग ऐसे क्यों हैं जो आज के ज़माने को अंडरस्टैंड करने का समय कि बहुत सारे लोग हैं जिनको लगता है कि ये सारा ग्रोथ और ये प्रोग्रेस हुआ ना, ये सब ये अंग्रेजी बोलने वालों के लिए हुआ है, ये सब जिनको प्रिविलेजेस मिले उनके लिए हुआ है।
Correct.
तो उनका भी एक बंच ऑफ है कि ये पिछली गवर्नमेंट जो है वो सिर्फ इनको फेवर करती थी, पिछली गवर्नमेंट हमारे बारे में सोचती नहीं है। तो वो रिजेंटमेंट में आके और एम्पावर होकर हम दिखाते हैं। सो समथिंग, हर चीज़ कहाँ से आती है? हर चीज़ रिजेंटमेंट से आती है।
Absolutely.
और रिजेंटमेंट क्यों होता है? क्योंकि है ये बायस ऐसा नहीं कि यहाँ पे भी है, बायस पिछले सरकार में था। अब जितना भी आप जो है एक सभ्य व्यवहार होता है, जो अवेयरनेस से आता है, जो काइंडनेस से आता है, जो एम्पैथी से आता है,
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल,
एजुकेशन से आता है। अब जो एम्पैथी नहीं जानता है, जिसको वो अवेयरनेस है नहीं, जब वो एम्पावर होगा तो इट विल क्रिएट वायलेंस, इट विल क्रिएट अ सॉर्ट ऑफ एनार्की, इट विल क्रिएट अ वर्ल्ड एंड एटमॉस्फेयर जो तो वहीं से आएगा जो वो है।
absolutely. I think
I'm saying my job is to step back and see and try and understand.
and you're
My
very
job is not
objective
to
about
point
it.
finger. No, I always want to stay objective.
Yeah,
about it.
even Mukkabaaz, what you're saying is it's very journalistic. You're stating things the way they are. You're
The
not,
way they
you're
are and
not-
the way they are somewhere
You're not
affecting us.
passing a judgment on them. You're not
I don't want
preaching or anything of that. And that stems, I think, even Black Friday for the matter, it was such an objective film. You are not talking about religion per se. You are giving the circumstances. You are stating that who did what. And you're stating it very, very objectively.
No, if you read the history,
there is no...
if you really get into religion, you see the religion, every individual religion came into existence to bring people together.
Right.
And every religion came from a certain space and time.
Correct.
It was the need for the time and the space to deal with whether it was famine or violence or people fighting with each other. Every religion has had a story of origin. चाहे वो हिंदुइज्म हो, चाहे वो क्रिश्चियनिटी हो, चाहे वो इस्लाम हो, सबका ओरिजिन कहीं ना कहीं से हुआ है to make life better for
Better,
people.
absolutely. And more civilized.
And there's not a single religion that has taught people about violence.
Absolutely.
Not a single religion. It shuns that. The reason to create it was that. Now, and then the people who come in and they make religion into a business.
Absolutely.
And religion has been used as a vehicle and as a weapon for
Absolutely.
generations.
Absolutely.
To oppress people, to control people, to have power over people.
Absolutely.
And now that's something that when you see around you, I'm like, ऐसा तो नहीं था, हम बड़े बड़े थे, हम तो यार सारे फेस्टिवल मनाते थे।
Absolutely.
छोटे बच्चे के लिए क्या है, फेस्टिवल मतलब छुट्टी,
Absolutely.
छुट्टी और फेस्टिवल मतलब अच्छा खाना, एंड फेस्टिवल मतलब सेलिब्रेशंस। हमारे लिए फेस्टिवल का उससे ज़्यादा मायना नहीं होता था।
बिल्कुल।
हमें बताया जाता था फेस्टिवल क्यों होता है, उसकी स्टोरीज क्या हैं।
Right.
Correct. We were like that. We were innocent kids. But we grow up and suddenly we have this resentment. My festival is better than yours.
Yeah,
My festival is
absolutely.
more meaningful than yours. My
Absolutely.
God is greater than
And
yours.
then festivals are being stopped. Like in Aligarh, it's being told to the schools that you cannot celebrate Christmas. Christmas, like
हर जगह जहाँ जो
carol singers,
जो
they are
मेजोरिटी में है, जो पावर में है,
Yeah.
वो जो है वो दूसरे को रिजेंट करता है,
Right.
वो दबाएगा, वो होगा, वो हमेशा होता है। मैं तो हमेशा ये बोलता हूँ कि ऐसा क्या नहीं है जो नहीं होता है, और जब ऐसा होता है तो आप कंपेयर करो अपने आप को उन देशों से जहाँ पे हमसे ज़्यादा ऑपरेसिव रेजिम से,
बिल्कुल।
और क्या हम उनसे बेहतर हैं? हाँ, हम हैं। एज अ फिल्म मेकर, मैं जब फिल्में बैन थी तब भी मुझे फिल्म बनाने को मिल जाती थी।
You know, but what we were, what India was, say आज से 20 साल पहले, जैसे कि मिस्टर राय said that हमने आज के टाइम पे कि हम राम तेरी गंगा मैली बना सकते हैं। We made so many socially progressive film, what Raj Kapoor साहब did, या Bimal Roy. In today's time, if you compare not with any other country but your own parameter, so things are different. And you know, one, I think as far as Mukkabaaz is concerned, आपने एक बहुत ही interesting चीज़ what you're saying, which I think a very very dangerous precedent, that this entire beef politics, कि that अगर आपको personal rivalry settle करना है, तो you just use the entire beef element.
You use the larger emotion of the country.
Emotion of the country, and it becomes legitimized. And the fact is that you are
I
actually
know of
settling a
incidents
personal-
where people have actually, because they want to get to a piece of land or somebody's herd of cattle,
Correct.
they've used the beef politics, eliminated the man, and have taken over that.
And still become heroes.
And still become heroes. And if you know people in the police and people in the media, they'll tell you about it.
Yeah.
And they've not been able to write about it or talk about it. But
Absolutely.
it is that. It had reached a point which forced the Prime Minister to acknowledge it last year during the election. We were shooting in Bareilly
Ji.
when he made that speech.
Correct.
Where he acknowledged that, you know, the people are using Gauraksha, and there are lots of these anti-social goon elements who are using Gauraksha as an excuse to do things. You are supposed to acknowledge that.
Correct.
Because that was happening, and we were shooting that, and when that was happening, and we made sure that we made that part of what we're doing, because it somewhere is affecting people, it somewhere is creating fear. It has directly affected the economic survival of an entire strata of people.
Right.
Only depended on that. It has indirectly affected a lot of other people, and it's not like it literally become the new contraband.
Absolutely, absolutely, which is extremely scary, because the fact is that you can get away with a murder and still become a hero.
Yeah.
You're settling a score and you're still becoming a hero, which is like damn scary.
And nobody wants to know the truth.
Nobody wants to know the truth.
Nobody wants to research the truth. They want to believe what's convenient to them.
Right, because they'll create some new headline,
Yeah.
and the issues will get buried under them. Now, coming back to the film once again. Now, you're having a very extremely, I think, interesting sort of climax as well for the film. I won't talk about the climax, but the fact is, it is very uplifting. At the same time, it is something which is absolutely, in a way, contrasting as well. How important was it for you to just
For me, it's very,
find victory in something?
No, for me, it's very important to see how the audience reacts to it. Simply because
I think they'll react
it creates
positively. It has that moment.
Every
It has that
single
moment. The way
screening,
he looks-
people have erupted, and
Yeah.
they have had this fervor.
जी बिल्कुल.
Right?
हाँ जी.
But also, the power of that one phrase is what creates in them, and after that they question, what was it trying to say?
Correct.
For me, that is what is very important, because people question it themselves more than what I am trying to say.
Correct.
People need to go in there and figure it out. What were they standing up for, and what were they cheering for, and what were they trying to communicate, which always happens 5 minutes after the screening is over.
Right.
And for me, that is more important, because people need to start to think.
Definitely. And one more thing, as I mentioned you earlier as well, that films have been made on sports politics and sportsmen and all these things in the past. But it is extremely important that people need to understand that whoever, as far as sports people are concerned in India, if they are shining at a certain level, they're doing it primarily because of their own
passion.
effort.
Everyone
The
is doing it
effort
for their
put
own
in
passion.
by a country like China, the amount of efforts that the government puts in, and the amount of spanners that are thrown by government officials in India, any government whatsoever, is humongous. They don't take sports seriously at all, actually.
I mean, no, the two things not taken seriously in India: sports and movies.
Job होना चाहिए आपके पास. Even
Sports and
he faces-
culture, art and culture
Yeah.
are not taken seriously. They're used. The soft power that is used by the powers to be, whether it's promotion or advertising and everything else, and they're also the most judged people. And people who are the most judged people are often the people who are most envied people. In the sense, everybody wants that life, and everybody doesn't want to give credit, because there's nobody in the country that thinks that they did not deserve it more than you did. I'm saying, people will watch your interview, everybody thinks, oh, I can do this interview. Right? But we'll put them in the chair and they'll be so afraid to ask the right questions. It's a very simple thing.
I'm sure, yeah.
I'm saying there's nobody who doesn't think they can't do what I do.
Yeah, that's true.
So everybody resents that. The thing is, they don't step out of their own zone and actually go out to do things. And a long time back, somebody says that never be bothered by the noise and what people comment, because when you're playing a game, it's the sportsman that plays, it's the audience that comments.
Absolutely.
And cheers.
Absolutely.
And if you look at it, like yesterday there was somebody tweeted about Sindhu coming second.
Yeah.
Sindhu's world ranking is third and she's come second. It's still an achievement. But
big
the thing is, people who didn't care about badminton suddenly will go and attack somebody for coming second. See the game, no? See how much she gave of herself to the game.
Absolutely.
Can you last 5 minutes in that place where she was? Can you
Absolutely.
fight the onslaught? Can you survive all those things?
No, absolutely. Be it Abhinav Bindra, so many of them. The fact is that they have spent their own money. They've spent.
They've all been
so
home trained, self trained, or
Yeah.
been trained by the passion of that one coach
Right.
or that one individual in the family.
Correct.
Who has gone through the system and did not survive and decided to not depend on the system and create their own atmosphere. Why do you think most medal winners in the country come back and give up on the sport and start an academy to create future sportsmen?
Absolutely. It's coming from their personal space as well. PT
coming
Usha,
from
so
their
many of
personal
them.
space.
So many of them. even then they don't get that much amount of support that they
They
deserve.
don't. Like we have Anju Bobby George has started a long jump training space.
Correct.
Long jump and triple jump training space.
Right.
I'm saying there should be a space which creates athletes of all kinds. And not just, it doesn't happen by making a stadium. Somebody said that, have you seen the kind of facilities provided? I said, facilities provided for what?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen the facility provided. I've gone and done so many talks at the facility provided for sports.
Absolutely.
That is no place for talks. But the stadium is always hired out for some convocation or the other, because that's how they survive, that's how they make money.
State concerts or anything on that.
And most people who have access and membership have access and membership because they know someone. I mean, how will anything survive? How will anything function?
Absolutely.
I go outside this country, I go to US, I never have a problem finding a gym or a swimming pool or a training space.
Absolutely.
I have to just go and Google public pool near me and I find it.
Yeah.
And where I have to pay the minimal amount and go and attend it. I don't have to have a membership. I don't need to know anyone.
Right.
They don't ask you that questions. And anywhere across, whether I go to Europe or US, I have always come back more fitter and healthier.
No,
because
absolutely.
I have a regular space to go to.
Absolutely. I was in Chicago. A friend of mine, he came from Ohio and we wanted to play tennis because I like to play tennis. And he was like that, कहीं पर भी कोई भी अगर कोर्ट होगा हम जाके वहाँ पर प्ले कर सकते हैं. मैंने कहा ऐसे कैसे होता है? And there was a court, it was open and we played for 1 hour.
Yeah.
And
there's an atmosphere like that, the rules like that, and you can do things.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now one very interesting thing about, as I've constantly been saying, I think you've got outstanding music score. It's like a brilliant music score. I think the lyrics are outstanding as well. One question that comes to my mind is that most of the songs, that especially I think Pantra, if you're talking about, and even apart from that as well, you're having a very, distinct this entire EDM and very very today's sort of rhythm design that you're having. At the same time, you're having a very, very rustic feel as far as lyrics or the way the singing is. Do you look at it as a metaphor that you're just blending in a way the rustic side?
For me, I want to create a certain mood. I know what things I want to say. And I work with people who have similar things to say and we find a way to say it.
Right.
Because music and songs have always been our way to communicate and tell stories to the world before. Like, I remember when we were growing up, when women did not talk openly about things. In the wedding, they talked about sexuality through songs, which is what inspired me to create Womani and all those things previously.
Correct.
Right? Similarly, things that we can't openly talk about, people have subverted all of that. There's not a single thing in this movie that has not existed before this movie.
Yeah.
Whether it's Bahut Hua Samman, in a very different form, it has existed. Mushkil Apna Male Priya has existed.
Right.
3:30 Baje has existed.
Correct.
The song that Chipkali, it has existed on this internet. So I have only gone into that world and spent a lot of time finding what people have been trying to say and those voices and worked from there.
Correct.
What I could get rights of, I got rights of. What was free for people to interpret, we interpreted it.
Correct.
But there's nothing that I have not somewhere or the other not touched me and has not existed, because I know when you're dealing with a movie and you're trying to do something, you're very consciously also seeing that I'm going to pick up from things that have been part of our existence for the longest time.
Absolutely. Okay, Anurag, we have a few segments as well. Before that, finally, I'd just like to, personally, because this thing tends to, I think, bother me a bit as well, because I try to, because even we are from media, so at times we are forced to do certain things which maybe we don't want to, but still we do. But what I personally find a bit strange about this entire speculation about your personal life as well. I personally feel it doesn't matter that who's in a relationship with whom, what is the age of that person or not. It's absolutely irrelevant and it's no one's business. Does it fluster you? Does it bother you unnecessarily that your personal life is your personal life?
See, my personal life. One thing is like people always, they can never really know what's going on.
Yeah.
Right? Like speculation will always go on. More than me, people in my life get troubled by it.
Correct.
So I decide to not talk about it or don't talk about it and things like that, because We all have our shares of trials and tribulations.
Right.
I am what I am about my work. So yes, it used to bother me because it used to bother people in my life.
Correct.
And it still bothers people in my life. So when that comes up, yeah, we deal with it. I mean, now what can you do? You have to deal with it.
Right.
But this morbid obsession that people have with each other's personal lives without knowing what it is, because as long as family is happy, as long as people who know you and people in your lives understand it, and nobody sees anything, a problem with it, it's all fine. Rest of the people who don't know anything will always judge. And for me, do I choose to explain myself to them? No, I don't.
Great. That's a rapid fire. तो अनुराग कश्यप, आपके हिसाब से इस इंडस्ट्री का माइक टाइसन कौन है? Figuratively speaking.
Figuratively speaking?
Yeah, figuratively.
No. इस इंडस्ट्री का माइक टाइसन मैं हूँ. मैं लड़ता रहता हूँ. मैं गिव अप नहीं मारता.
Good. Have you linked your Aadhaar card to PAN card?
I have zero idea about this because financially I don't understand a lot of things about finance. I depend a lot on other people. They must have. I'm saying, when if it was there, कुछ तो हुआ है, होगा. Because I know I have an Aadhaar card. That much I know.
It's 4 a.m. on a Saturday night. Why are you awake?
It's only because I must be stressed and not sleeping. So otherwise, or I'm shooting.
Okay. What is the last thing that you have binged watched?
Last thing I binged was Mindhunter.
Okay. One movie people would be surprised to know that you like.
Oh, there are lots of movies like that. Many movies like that I like, which people get very shocked at. Let me start from. I absolutely. क्या नाम लूँ मैं?
जो भी आपको सही लगे.
नहीं ना, people will be absolutely surprised. तो मैं कहा हाँ, मैं अभी सोच रहा हूँ हाँ, ये सब फिल्में तो पॉपुलर फिल्में भी है. A film that I really like.
Yeah, because you have this entire image of this independent cinema.
No, I'm not. I think I'm very commercial. Any other country, I'll be called a commercial filmmaker.
Yeah.
बस यहाँ पे मुझे independent और edgy बोला जाता है, because यहाँ commerce कुछ और ही है.
Right.
इंडिया के बाहर लोग मेरे को बिल्कुल कमर्शियल समझते हैं. A film that I really like, a commercial mainstream movie, then it makes sense, no?
Yeah.
जनरली आमिर खान की तो सब चीज़ अच्छी लगती है मुझे. ज़्यादा राजू हिरानी की सारी चीज़ें अच्छी लगती हैं.
Correct.
A film that I really liked was.
You know, the question is, one movie people would be surprised to know that you like.
Oh, Sultan.
Sultan. Okay. You have a history with Salman Khan as well, sir. Okay.
Sultan.
Alright, who came up with the Muhammad Ali Kerala se the punchline?
I think some minister from Kerala came up with that punchline. I read it in the Times of India.
Okay. A movie that made you cry?
A movie that made me cry? The last movie that made me cry? Coco.
Oh, okay. How often do you look up your name on Google?
I don't. I think my PA had created this Google alert.
Right.
On my phone. So every morning I wake up, मुझे गूगल अलर्ट आता है. उसमें बहुत सारी कुछ न्यूज़ होती हैं. पढ़ता नहीं हूँ, वो हेडलाइंस वो सब पढ़ के निकल जाती है कई बार. सारी मेल्स खोलता हूँ तो वो भी खोलता हूँ.
Okay, your favorite nuclear song?
मेरा फेवरेट न्यूक्लियर सॉन्ग अभी तो पैंतरा है.
पैंतरा. Okay, apart from पैंतरा?
राजा का बाजा.
राजा का बाजा. Okay. If you can define Mukkabaaz in just 3 words.
Mukkabaaz is passion, politics, and love.
Great. We have a very interesting, I think, segment. I think our team has worked on it. This is basically that ये कुछ situations हैं. आप हमें इन situations से deal करने का पैतरा बताएं. So it's like a पैतरा. Okay, अगर आपकी फिल्म किसी रानी के ऊपर हो और उसकी रिलीज रुक जाए क्योंकि कुछ पॉलिटिकल रिलीजियस पार्टीज को प्रॉब्लम है उसकी कहानी से, ऐसी फिल्म रिलीज कराने का क्या पैतरा है?
ऐसी फिल्म रिलीज कराने का सबसे अच्छा पैतरा ये है कि आप सबसे पहले फिल्म उठाओ, कंधे पे लो, हाँ, और जिनका काम है आपकी फिल्म को, आपके राइट्स को प्रोटेक्ट करना, उनके पास ले जाओ और बैठ जाओ वहाँ पे फिल्म का रील लेके कि आप जब तक मेरी फिल्म नहीं देखेंगे, क्योंकि मैं उनको नहीं दिखाऊंगा फिल्म. आप सरकार में हो, आप बोर्ड में हो, आपका काम मुझे प्रोटेक्ट करना. आप देखो ये फिल्म, आप देखो, और आपका काम है उनको बोलना. और चूंकि आप पावर में हो, अगर वो आपकी बात मानते नहीं मानते, अगर नहीं मानते तो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर प्रॉब्लम वो है, मेरी फिल्म नहीं।
एब्सोल्युटली। आपने कहा कि हमारे देश में गोल्ड मेडल्स कम और स्पोर्ट्स में फिल्म में ज़्यादा हैं, इस प्रॉब्लम का क्या पैतरा हो सकता है?
कुछ नहीं, स्पोर्ट्समैन को एम्पावर करना ज़रूरी है, प्लस हमारी कंट्री में हम बहुत जल्दी एक्साइटेड हो जाते हैं और बहुत जल्दी डिसअपॉइंट हो जाते हैं। और हमारी फिल्म ऑस्कर में जाती है, जीतेंगे नहीं जीतेंगे, नहीं जाती है, फिर से कुछ नहीं हुआ, कोई एक मेडल जीतता है उसको तुरंत सर पे चढ़ा देते हैं। और अगर वो अपने आप को हैंडल कर सकता है सब सही है, लेकिन कई लोग ऐसे नहीं कर पाते हैं हैंडल। हमारे तो एक छोटे छोटे अचीवमेंट पे हमारे मीडिया सवाल ही से पूछती है। मैं कल कुछ इंटरव्यू पढ़ रहा था, एक स्पोर्ट्समैन को एक जगह ब्रॉन्ज मेडल मिला था। मीडिया का पहला क्वेश्चन, अगर आपको लगता है आपके ऊपर बायोपिक बनेगा तो आप दीपिका पादुकोण को चूज करेंगे, अनुष्का शर्मा को? मीडिया का सवाल ही ऐसा होता है, तो हर आदमी अपने आप को ऐसे देखता है। और सबसे बड़ी बात तो ये है कि हमारी कंट्री में जैसे आप बाहर देखते हो लोगों के बायोपिक, तो यहाँ पे क्या होता है कि बायोपिक बनता है तो हर आदमी अपना बायोपिक में वही फिल्म ही पाना चाहता है जो वो देख के बड़ा हुआ है। उसको फिल्म बायोपिक में भी रोमांस चाहिए, बायोपिक में भी गाने चाहिए, बायोपिक भी सच से बहुत परे हो जाता है, बायोपिक खत्म होते होते पेट्रियाटिक भी हो जाता है। तो हम लोग के तो बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम है। एक ही भाई थोड़ा नॉर्मल हो जाओ।
बिल्कुल। सर फाइनली, कॉन्डम एड्स अब दिन में नहीं दिखाए जाएंगे, सिर्फ रात में 10 बजे के बाद दिखाए जाएंगे। हम लोगों को कैसे एजुकेट करें, कुछ पैतरा सजेस्ट करिए प्लीज़।
अभी यार मेरे को तो पता नहीं, मैं तो टीवी देखता नहीं हूँ, मुझे तो जो देखना है इंटरनेट में मिल जाता है।
राइट।
सो ऐसा तो है नहीं, इंटरनेट के ज़माने में इस क्वेश्चन को तो मैं अभी छोड़ ही दूंगा। मतलब मुझे नहीं समझ में आता कि किसी को बैन करके क्या मिलेगा और किसी को बैन के लड़के क्या मिलेगा, क्योंकि सब कुछ है चारों तरफ।
करेक्ट।
बट समवेयर हाँ, आपका इंटेंशन क्या वो बैन करने का,
यस,
दैट इज समथिंग। अगर आप उससे अनकंफर्टेबल हो रहे हो तो प्रॉब्लम आपके साथ है, प्रॉब्लम एक्ट के साथ नहीं है। अगर आपको लगता है उससे आप जो है लोगों को बचा रहे हो, तो नहीं, आप लोगों को नहीं बचा रहे हो, आप बल्कि और प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट कर रहे हो उनके लिए जिनको नहीं समझ में आता। जो समझदार है उसको ऐड दिखाओ ना दिखाओ, उसको मालूम है क्या नहीं करना है, क्या करना है।
एब्सोल्युटली।
जहाँ पे आप सेक्स के बारे में बात नहीं कर सकते हो, आप एजुकेशन नहीं दे सकते हो, जहाँ पे हर चीज़ में आपको शर्म आती है, वहाँ पे जो थोड़ी बहुत सेफ्टी आप उसको हटाना चाहते हो तो ठीक है, आपके ऊपर है भाई।
एब्सोल्युटली। अनुराग कश्यप, थैंक यू वेरी मच, इट्स वंडरफुल टॉकिंग टू यू, थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू।
दैट्स ऑल वी आर फ्रॉम बॉलीवुड हंगामा, कीप ऑन वाचिंग।
Hi, I'm Anurag Kashyap and you're watching me on Bollywood Hungama.